My name is Everly, and I'm 35 years old. 4 years ago, I stopped answering my parents' calls. I didn't know it yet, but that silence would eventually make my own mother tell the entire family I was dead. Not missing, not estranged, dead. A car accident, a cremation, a candle she lit every Sunday for a daughter who was very much alive, 2 states away, living in a small house with a blue door. Then one Thursday evening, my sister showed up on my porch, holding her phone up, ready to photograph my address and send it home like evidence. She looked up, she saw my face, and she went pale like she'd seen a ghost before. I tell you what happened next. Please hit like and subscribe. Drop your city and local time below. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now let me take you back to 12 years ago, when a phone call first taught me what my family's love actually costs. I grew up in a house that smelled like instant coffee and old carpet, a smell I can still conjure if I close my eyes. My father's business ventures came and went like weather. My mother kept a ledger in her head of who owed her what, and somehow I always owed the most. But there was one soft place in that house, my grandmother, Nana Ruth, who lived in the converted sunroom at the back. Her room smelled like lavender talcum powder and the wood polish she used on her one good dresser. The floor creaked in exactly 2 places. I could always tell when she was walking toward me. I remember one autumn evening, maybe 8 years old, sitting on her lap while she brushed my hair with an old boar bristle brush, the bristles catching gently against my scalp. Outside, rain tapped against the window in that specific rhythm that means it will last all night. "Everly," she said, her voice low. "Some people will love you like a well, others will love you like a bucket." I didn't understand it then. I thought she meant something about water. There was another night, Thanksgiving, maybe 11 years old, when I overheard my parents in the kitchen, plates clinking, my father's voice flat and practical. "She's the one who'll go somewhere. She's the one we can count on later." Not affection, a forecast, an investment plan. Nana Ruth caught me standing in the hallway, my bare feet cold on the hardwood. She didn't explain, she just pulled me into the kitchen, put a slice of pie in front of me, and said, "Eat something warm, baby." The pie was still faintly steaming. It was the only warmth in that house that didn't come with strings. By the time I was a teenager, I understood the pattern without having words for it yet. My worth in that house was measured in what I could provide, money, later, once I was grown. Before that, obedience, grades, silence during arguments. Nana Ruth was the only one who ever asked how I felt before asking what I could do. I sensed something was wrong long before I could name it. I just didn't have any power yet. Nana Ruth died when I was 23, in the spring, the year the lilacs outside her window bloomed particularly full. I remember the smell of them drifting through the open window while she slept those last days. Sweet, almost too sweet, like the world was trying to apologize in advance. At her funeral, my mother cried the correct amount. My father shook hands with the correct firmness. But 3 days later, I heard them in the kitchen again, that same kitchen, that same flat tone. "The sunroom could be a home office," my mother said. "Or we rent it out. Not, I miss her, not, she's gone, just square footage. That's the word they use for everything that used to be love. Asset." I said nothing. I never said anything in that house. I went to the sunroom that night, alone, and sat on the edge of her old bed, running my hand along the dresser she'd polished 1,000 times. I didn't cry loudly. I just sat there, filing something away, a decision without a shape yet. Over the next several years, I sent money home every month, telling myself it was love, the way I'd been trained to rent tuition for my brother, my father's ventures, always one more away from success. I told myself I was the well, not the bucket, and that being the well made me good. It took the year I lost my job to see the truth. I called my mother, shaking, expecting concern. "How are we supposed to pay the electric bill?" she said. Not one question about me. That was the moment I became invisible to them in a new way. Not the invisible of being overlooked, but the invisible of being reduced entirely to function. And somewhere in that invisibility, I found the first flicker of power. If I was only a function to them, I could simply stop functioning where they could see me. 6 months after I stopped answering, a letter arrived at my new address, an address I hadn't given anyone. It was from a law office 2 states from where I grew up. Inside was a note in Nana Ruth's handwriting, tucked behind the lawyer's cover letter, dated years before she died. For Everly, when you're ready, Ruth. I called the number. A woman named Patricia Alvarez answered, calm, unhurried, the kind of voice that made you feel like nothing was actually an emergency, even when it was. Patricia told me something else. Ren, my sister, had been asked to search for me, not out of love, but because my mother had found an old pay stub of mine among Nana Ruth's things and realized there might still be a source worth locating. My father, ever practical, had said it plainly. If she's alive somewhere, she might still be useful. I felt the floor of my old life fall away completely. I texted Patricia 2 words, I'm ready. That night, I imagined my parents somewhere, satisfied, believing they'd already found their answer. A daughter to reopen, a pipeline to restore. They had no idea the door had already closed on their terms years before, quietly, legally, permanently. Patricia walked me through it in plain language over a video call. The trust was already mine. I simply had to sign to formally claim it and, if I chose, place legal protections on my new address and finances so no future search could ever succeed again. You don't owe them access, she said. You never did. A week later, my mother called, a number I didn't recognize, a burner or borrowed phone. Her voice was honey warm in a way I hadn't heard in years. We just want to see you, baby. Just come home for a visit. I could hear the calculation underneath it, the same one that had always been there. I'll think about it, I said. Nothing more. That same week, my brother, the one whose tuition I'd paid for a decade, texted me out of nowhere. Something feels off with Mom and Dad lately. You okay? He didn't know anything. He just felt the shape of the lie shifting. The night before I signed, I drove out to the small plot of land Nana Ruth had left me, an overgrown 1/4 acre with one old oak tree, nothing built on it yet. I sat under that tree until the sky went from orange to navy. I wish this were different. I wish my mother had been the kind of mother who called to ask how I was doing instead of what I could still give. Wish my father had been proud of who I became instead of what I could produce. I wish love in that house had ever once come without a request attached. But wishes don't hold up. The trust does. I cried under that oak tree, not from weakness, from clarity. It was 2:50 in gabi when I opened my laptop for the video call with Patricia. My small house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator down the hall. Ready when you are, she said. I signed, the trust became mine, fully, formally. My new address was placed under legal privacy protections, my finances permanently separated from anyone with my last name. Patricia smiled, warm but professional. Ruth would be proud of you. 12:03 a.m. I am 35. I am, for the first time in my life, fully and legally untouchable by the people who raised me to believe I owed them everything. And across those 2 states, my parents were asleep, still believing my sister would find my door, photograph it, and hand them away back in. They'd find out otherwise in about 18 hours. The consequence didn't land at a party. It landed on my porch that Thursday evening when Ren's face went white and she backed down. My steps without a word, phone shaking at her ear. Days later, when she finally told my mother the truth, that I was alive, that I'd always been alive, my mother's first question wasn't relief. It was, did you get the address? Ren didn't answer her. She hung up. My mother called me exactly once after that, her voice sliding back into that same honey warmth. "We're your parents. We just want to talk." I was calm, unmoved. "You had 4 years to ask if I was okay. You used them to plan a eulogy instead." She looked in my mind like she was still talking to the daughter who used to apologize for existing. I wasn't her anymore. I hadn't been for a long time. Nana Ruth used to say, "Some people love you like a well, and some love you like a bucket." I always thought she meant something simple about giving. She meant something deeper. A well replenishes itself quietly, on its own terms. A bucket only holds what's poured into it and empties the moment someone tips it over. My parents never came looking again. My father's last venture failed within the year, with no daughter left to bail it out. Ren visits me most weekends now. We sit on the porch steps while I water the small garden along the fence. As for me, I still have the blue door, the quarter-acre with the old oak tree, and a folder in a drawer with Nana Ruth's handwriting on it. I think about her every time I sit under that tree at dusk. And I think some people spend their whole lives trying to be loved like a well, when all they ever needed was to stop being someone else's bucket. If you've ever had to go quiet to protect your own peace, I want to hear your story. Tell me in the comments, and if this story moved you, subscribe to Dad's Revenge Tales. There are more to come.